Regular on Saturday. So with that, Coach, you can start off with a brief statement.
Yep, just happy to be back home, happy the students are back on campus, and look forward to playing Vanderbilt on Wednesday.
Coach, the people on Twitter wanted to know the story behind these shirts that you've been wearing. Like, is that some kind of deal that you've got, or just for fun because it's associated with Arkansas?
That's a good question. A lot of good Twitter stuff, huh? No, it's, big sponsors. Not of me, of Arkansas. So I'm just big supporters of Tyson.
Gotcha.
Steve?
Just with Vanderbilt and their leading scorer out in Kentucky coming, is there a worry about,
You know what I think you do? Maybe I should, sorry to interrupt, maybe I should, are these questions on your Twitter feed?
Yeah.
So I can, before I walk in here,
You could know a lot of the questions ahead of time, yeah.
Sorry.
No, just with that, with Vanderbilt and their leading scorers hurt, and you got Kentucky Saturday, and obviously teams, fans, and everybody look ahead to them. Is that a concern at all?
It's a concern just because it was brought up. I mean, we got one thing to worry about, and it's how do we get ready for Wednesday's game. That's it. It's the most important game on our schedule. They played Auburn great the other night on the road. We got to get ready to figure out how to play Vandy. That's plain and simple.
Tom?
Hey, Eric, is there any analytic you see that speaks to why Isaiah has a bigger second half, scores more in the second half so far?
I just think he's an unselfish player, and so I think he lets his teammates get involved, and I think for the most part we've kind of been a second half team as well. But from a X and O standpoint, we go to our go-to scores more in the second half. First half, there's a lot of play calls and stuff that are run where 5 guys are touching the ball and we have a little bit more movement. Then the last 10 minutes of the game, we have specific sets with different wrinkles where we're actually, dictating more, so to speak, who's taking those shots or who has the ball in their hands to make decisions.
Coach, we're still as a play a little bit against Ole Miss. What did you like, not like, and do you think that we'll see him against Vanderbilt?
I don't know if we'll see him more or less.
Hello. It's our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins, Sports Talk Radio, coming to you each and every day here on KDSJ 479. And we let you hear audio from head basketball coach Eric Musselman as he previews a little bit of tomorrow's 7:30 p.m. tip-off at Bud Walton Arena on Nola Richardson Court versus the Vanderbilt Commodores. We'll play that in parts as we're going to get a nice little more basketball talk because we're going to have on our good buddy, you know who he is, Hallville.net, Kevin McPherson. We're going to talk this version of the Razorbacks, and it's a real big recruiting weekend coming up. A lot of interesting prospects will make their way to the Hill for the big matchup versus the UK Wildcats. But I want to bring in real quick my guy, the man behind the scenes, D. What's up, my man?
Not much. Just got off work, so I'm a little laggy.
Steve Darman, one of our top fans, he's watching from Cabot, Arkansas. D. Butts, what's up, man? D. Butts says hello. See everyone. But let's get on. If you have any questions about tomorrow night's ball game versus Vanderbilt, please chime in. I mean, where do you think this basketball team, you think they'll be focused for tomorrow night's game with the big game coming up versus Kentucky? What many Razorback fans consider a rival. I don't know how much of a rival Kentucky considers it, but they're coming to Fayetteville, so we'll call it a rivalry. Do you think they'll be focused for tomorrow night's game? Easy, Demetrius, that this team could slip because, let's face it, Vanderbilt's coming in with not a lot of success in conference. I don't believe they won a conference game, and it dates back to last season. Kind of like Arkansas on the football side of things. When you come off the road and got a big road win like they did at Ole Miss, a place that Arkansas historically has not had success, kind of easy. And then, let's take it. This is still yet a young basketball team. Successful, but still a young basketball team.
Definitely, but I don't think it's too much because it's so new to them. They don't come from losing programs. Even when you look at a lot of guys on this team, they come from good stock, good programs. Right. So this isn't something new to these guys. So I don't think it's too much. I just think they have to come out and play consistent. I think that's the thing about Muss that he wants from his team is just play consistent and do what I ask of you each and every night.
Chad from Bella Vista, he's checking us out. I want to give a shout out to Chad and thank you for joining the program. If you have any questions, like we said, Arkansas, either you see them kind of slipping tomorrow night, maybe not in a loss. I think Arkansas, they're going to play a pretty good home ball game. Maybe not to the level because, like I said, when you come off an emotional road victory like they did this past weekend in Oxford versus Ole Miss, kind of hard to get up, and you're looking ahead to a big matchup. So Vanderbilt, I think they'll play them close early on, but Arkansas will win going away, in my humble opinion. And also, too, it's a big weekend for the University of Arkansas and Coach Sam Pittman, as it was just reported. Felipe Franks, former Florida starting quarterback up until the early part of the 2019 season as he went down with a knee injury. He'll be making an official visit to the University of Arkansas. And two, we talked about this long in advance. De'Aaron King was mentioned on one of our broadcasts several weeks ago as a possible grad transfer quarterback that would come up in conversations with Arkansas being a destination due to the fact of Kendall Browse. That too is an option. Man, what a difference a couple of months makes.
Yeah, that just shows you the Pittman effect and how important your head coach is from a brand standpoint and a relationship standpoint. You can't always go get guys that are good at X's and O's when it comes to being a head coach. He has to have a good reputation amongst other coaches. I think that's more important than sometimes the X's and O's. Having a good rapport with people and just having you can count on the people to do those X's and O's things. I think Ed Orgeron is going to kind of be the new blueprint when you look at coaching. Not saying Orgeron doesn't know the X's and O's, but I think he understands that he's not the strongest on the team when it comes to defense or offense. So he goes and gets guys that are masters in that craft, and it allows him to be good at what he does. So
we got our first question, my man.
What's that?
From D-Buds. D-Buds got several of them. He says, Coach Muss, on our first question, he feels like Coach Muss will have him focused in tomorrow night's ball game. But then he asked a really good question. Want to give a shout out, D, for the question. Franks or King? King, who is the better fit for Arkansas?
Ooh.
I'll let you attack that, and then
I'll start off.
I'll give my response.
Muss, I have to agree. I think Muss is going to have him right. I think Muss understands that he's approaching something special in Arkansas. Even when you look at how fast they're starting off and their record, and I think Muss is creating his own lane within coaches. Sometimes Arkansas has a history of wanting to date that X and keep them around and mention them around when they have some success. But I think you really don't hear a lot of comparisons between Musselman and Anderson. You see a completely different brand, and I think he's on a page to really right his own ship, and I think he understands what he's doing is something special here at Arkansas.
And then the next question is Franks or King, Felipe or De'Aaron? Which one, in your opinion, is a better fit for what Coach Browse wants to do here at Arkansas?
I think De'Aaron. I think he displayed that. The last year he played football, putting 50 touchdowns up. You want a guy that really put points on the board. I
Right.
think when you look at Arkansas, they need a guy that's electric. I don't think Franks is really mobile enough to really do what Arkansas is really trying to do from the RPO standpoint. He really just didn't impress me with his feet. Neither was his arm. I thought he had an okay arm, but it's just very inconsistent with his decision making.
Right.
But when you look at King, I think he gives you a little bit more athleticism and a guy that even if he can't do something with his arm, I think he can still make something happen with his legs. And I think that's a huge part of today's game. But I think even when you look at last night's game with that spread and having the ability to once that spread isn't working,
Right.
have it empty and have that quarterback do draws. I think that's going to be a huge part of college football coming up. So definitely King.
I think both. I think they're both good RPO guys. I mean, let's not forget that just a year removed that Felipe Franks led Florida to a 10-3 season. May have had a better year, was knocked out due to some injuries. And I know with us from our experience in being around him at the SEC Media Day, seems like a guy that has a really good head on his shoulders. And I kind of, when I think about both these guys, I liken them to maybe, or really in particular Felipe with Joe Burrow, a guy who just won the Heisman. His similar situation at Ohio State was that under a great coach there, under Urban Meyer, kind of situations and players have to happen, and maybe the system didn't fit. The young man moves on to LSU, and just by the luck of the draw, gets to run into a quarterback coach or an offensive pass caller, I should say. I think Joe Brady's the wide receivers coach there at LSU, but runs into a guy that understands weapons and understands that he can call plays and put Joe in a lot of very advantageous situations, as we saw each and every Saturday in this 2019 season. So I think if Felipe, or it's already been proven with D'Eric under Browse, what he can do at Houston. I mean, that's been proven. I just think when you get someone 6'6", it's about 230, then there's another added dimension that he doesn't have to be in. I think with the skill position players, and we saw this with Joe Burrow in LSU, when you have guys like Knox, Woods, Burks, Jackson, you're going to have Darian Turner. If the young man Savion Williams comes back, I mean, you're going to have some big wide receivers. Tyson Morris comes to mind. So you'll have a lot of weapons. And then at the tight end spot, if you can get adequate offensive line, I think, you take both of them. I mean, both of them are proven winners for the respective schools, King at Houston and Felipe at Florida. So if I'm coach, either one that wants to come, I'm going to take. I think you can make it work. And I don't think maybe to start, I think it makes the room, that quarterback room, and the alertness of, a guy that I'm really high on, KJ Jefferson, it makes KJ really go to work. And I think that's what you have to create. And Coach Pittman and that staff, I think that's what they're going to do. I mean, I see a lot of parallels for the future going forward with Coach Pittman and his staff as to what Ed Orgeron was able to put together. It's going to take some time. I'm not saying that they're going to up and in a year win the national championship. That's not what I'm saying. But I think for when you look at it, Coach O did it for the state of Louisiana. I think Coach Pittman, even though he, is not a born Arkansan, he is all Arkansan in everything that he does, and he's going to do it for this entire state. So, like I said, if you get one, either war, I mean, it's a win-win situation, really.
So, what was your favorite part of last night's game? What was your favorite moment?
You already know I'm a born and raised Clemson football fan. They're one of my top 3 college football programs. So the favorite part was when they went up 17-7, but watching Joe Burrow and watching the way that they were able to adjust to what I consider the best defensive coordinator in all of college football, in Brent Venables. It looked like, therefore the early part of about a quarter and a half, they were applying pressure, making Joe be very uncomfortable. But once Joe Brady and that, once he was able to sit up top, and you think about it, this is a guy that was just recently a year removed from being on the New Orleans Saints staff under Sean Payton, getting a chance to work and pick the mind of Drew Brees, former Hall of Famer. So, bring a guy like that down to the collegiate level who's been around a very high octane passing attack and passing scheme. You kind of knew, that eventually they were going to get going, but just to see the growth. I mean, this is a guy, Joe Brady, threw 18 Joe Burrow threw 18 touchdowns last year. Turns around in a year and throws 60 for over 5,200 yards.
Super Bowl. You said
Man.
Joe Brady, that's a Tom Brady and Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Joe Brady.
Yeah, I'm saying Joe Brady, Joe Burrow, but I mean to see his growth and to see what they were able to do offensively, I think that's the biggest thing out of last night. To see the LSU that we so feared with a passing game. That's what stood out to me.
That's dangerous to think about. I had 3 favorite moments. 2 favorite plays. The one where Chase did the step back, where he broke down. He had number 8 Terrell. And he just looked like he didn't want to be out there last night. He was just, I don't know where he was at. I don't know. He just didn't look mentally locked in. I think he was he was the Achilles heel in Clemson's defense last night because for a while it just looked like anywhere number 8 went, that was where Joe Burrow knew to throw the ball. So definitely that play where
they picked on him like a guitar.
Yeah, they played.
I mean, picked on him like a guitar string.
Then the second one was 22. I always forget his name. The running back.
Edwards Hilaire.
Even though he was out of bounds, the play where he pushed dude out of bounds and Tyler kept going
and put his foot and hand out on the white line and picked up 30 more.
His foot didn't go out.
My
his
goodness.
didn't go out.
But I mean, they got beat. I mean, Clemson got beat.
Exactly. That's why it was
Fair and
still one
square.
of my plays because it was one of those effort plays. Like that play didn't determine the game. I think it was definitely a huge momentum swing with that play.
My question, Demetrius, though, to all our viewers and listeners would be, if Arkansas were to get Felipe or De'Aaron King, what would be your expectation? What would be the fan expectation if one of those comes to fruition? I know Felipe will be on the campus of Arkansas for this weekend on an official visit. We'll be here with his dad as well as one of his representatives for the family. So that's a definite. We know Felipe's going to be over. So let's just say this. Felipe Franks comes to Arkansas, commits, becomes a Razorback. What's the expectation level? I'm still going to say 5 wins minimum. I think there's going to be some growth that's going to have to take place, some maturation. I mean, that's just the way it is, in my opinion. So what would be your expectation if, say, you get a guy that, was just recently started a 10-3 team?
Before I say that, I got to get to my last favorite part of the game. When they zoomed in on Nick Saban's face on the sideline.
He knows.
Nick had that look like, man, I'm not the king anymore.
He knows.
He had that look like, man, this may be where I'm sitting for a little while. Man. I'm not saying Alabama's out of the hunt and going to the national championship. I just think the road to get there now is going to be a little bit harder.
Think about this.
All these teams. Because I definitely think every program got better this year.
Right.
Even whether it was a firing of a coach and a hiring of a coach, I think every school got better with what they did this offseason.
Yeah, and hey, for those that don't know, Ed has continued to stockpile talent in Baton Rouge. But also, too, think about this. Now, in the SEC West alone, 4 national championship winning coaches. 4. With that being said, and Lane Kiffin was an assistant coach on the championship winning team there at USC. So let's think about this. You got Jimbo at A&M, won his at Florida State. We all know about Ed, LSU. You've got Saban at Alabama, and you've got Malzahn at Auburn. So you got 4 head coaches now. And then you're going to throw in a Mike Leach. Lane Kiffin, like I said, he was an offensive coordinator on the national championship team. And then Sam Pittman, who's been an offensive line coach in multiple SEC and was the offensive line coach just a couple years ago in overtime versus Alabama in the national championship game. So look at the quality of coach at the head, at the top, that now you're having to, go up against. It's no coincidence why the SEC West continues, in my opinion, to be the cream of the crop in college football.
I love it because it only makes the brand even bigger because each of these coaches brings something different, whether it's background story, funny, very charismatic. There's so many different elements to this group of coaches, and I think next year is going to be one of the more interesting years that we've seen in the SEC in a while. And I think you were hitting it. You kept saying it a couple of years. You was like, man, parity in the SEC is really about to take place. I want to say that you were starting to say this around Brett's last year. So it was about 2 years ago. You were speaking, saying, yeah, it's gonna be 3. It's gonna be a lot of parity come soon in the SEC, and I think it's really gonna take place. You're gonna see the beginning of it next year.
Right, absolutely. And man, we got some continue these questions. I mean, just continue to be good. Let's get to. Let me see. Okay. Nick, number 7 ranked baseball team in the country. Absolutely. That's you've come to expect that. I mean, this is something and I'll go on record, and I've told many people out and about town that I feel like the baseball team they're going to win a couple here. They could get 2 of the next 4, but I think they're really close. I think you're going to see a national championship come to Coach to DVH in the next 2 to 3 years. They're going to win one. I mean, they're just knocking on the door with the class that they just brought in. I'm telling you. When you have the 3rd-ranked class, the 9th-ranked class, and then you come back with another 3rd-ranked class, and all these will be on the field at the same time, a lot of pros, I mean, that's a recipe for a lot of success. So, I mean, hats off, continued. He's the GOAT. I mean, it's, like I said, summertime, spring and summer, you already know where the action's going to be, and it's at Baum Walker Stadium. So, really good question, Nick. Hard to say no to Franks. That's what D. Butt said. I agree. It would be hard. Nick Lee, last year he said we're talking about Ed Orgeron did say he had the best class. Terry Roy, Terry says Felipe will commit to Arkansas. He's that confident. And with the experience, he also says with the experience Franks has, it would bring 6 wins. King brings 7. I would have to agree. Like I said, it's a win-win situation. Both of these guys were very successful at their particular schools when they were starting quarterback. 2018, you have to say that De'Aaron King had his best, most productive year, accounted for over 50 touchdowns under Kendall Browse in that offensive scheme. And then it's a 10-3 year. That's not say Felipe didn't do. I mean, they were a 10-3 team in year 1 under.
He came in and said Stoops has a championship. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Stoops
he was a defensive line. He was on the defensive staff at LSU when they won it.
I was gonna say, Oklahoma did.
Remember that? Absolutely.
They made it to the championship game, but they lost that year.
I'm just telling you. I mean, it's big boy football now.
I forgot about Stoops.
And then you look over in the East. Kirby Smart was on a championship team at Alabama. Jeremy Pruitt was on the championship staff at at Florida State as the D coordinator when Jimbo was the head football coach at that time back in 2013. They're all over the place.
But I want to jump back over. A lot of these fans are commenting on Frank's legs, and that's why I say he's not going to be the type of dual threat quarterback that we need him to be. When you look at what Sam Pittman is asking him to do, he's asking him to do a lot with his legs.
Right.
And I think King is a way better fit. And I think he's electrifying. I think that's what Arkansas needs. Arkansas needs that type of player that they can make something happen every time they get the ball in their hands. We haven't had a quarterback like that in a while.
Right.
Especially in my time since I've been an Arkansas fan. I haven't seen, even when it came to, who was before Tyler Wilson?
Ryan Mallett.
He wasn't a runner. He was a gunslinger. So it's been a while since we've seen a dual threat quarterback like that. So I'm still going King over Felipe. I met Felipe, talked to him. I think he's a great guy, a guy with a lot of integrity. But when it comes to what we need as a team and what I think would put Arkansas in a better position as far as a bowl game, because that's what I think they need to go to the next level and to kind of wash away this kind of dry spell they had for the last 2 or 3. They have to be bowl eligible next year.
Well, we're going to step away, and then we're going to be joined by our good buddy of Hogville.net, the man that knows about the Muss Bus and about Muss's recruiting extravaganza. That's all coming up with Kevin McPherson. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Even the game before, he played 1 minute and got a big offensive rebound. So you rebounding the ball. It's obviously an area of deficiency for us. Having said that, he's 1 for 4 from the foul line. I think that's just a confidence thing and a rust thing, and put that on me because I haven't played him a lot. But certainly we'd like to, we went to the bench a little bit quicker, a little bit earlier against Ole Miss, maybe than some other games, and just kind of depends on the flow of the game and matchups and who you think the other team's going to bring off the bench on what we do going forward, and it's probably going to be a game by game and who's in foul trouble or who's not in foul trouble. But I was happy with how he rebounded.
What do you see out of Vanderbilt and kind of what problems do they present?
Lee's a really good player, can really score the ball. He's a great athlete. Their power forward can shoot the basketball. They're big, had a career night, 12 points, rebounded the ball well. He's a big, strong body. And then obviously Pippen can really get in the lane and keeps getting, as a freshman, keeps getting better and better. But obviously, saving Lee, just scoring ability, and we're going to have to contain him somewhat. Those are the things off the top of my head.
Scott?
Coach, Isaiah, I think, was shooting over 20% from three in the corners this year before Saturday.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It's on the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our Tuesday edition here on KDSJ. And real quick, before we get on to our featured guest, let's talk about our sponsors, Lindsay & Associates, Locomotion, Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and lastly, KDK's Chicken. And now for our featured moment, I want to bring in my good buddy who knows all about the Arkansas basketball team and their very big road win down in Oxford. He made the trip, so let's bring him in and talk a little recruiting with Kevin McPherson. KP, what's up?
Hey, Pat, I love being with you, man. Good to be back.
Let's get off into this past Saturday's ball game at Oxford versus Ole Miss. Arkansas goes down 11 late in the second half. And just throughout the game, Kevin, just seemed, from my vantage point, just couldn't get anything going on the offensive end, but stuck together, was able down the stretch to get stops. Talk about that win. And, with a win like this, emotionally, what can this do for this basketball team? As, we know they got a big week coming up here in Fayetteville.
Yeah, this team has shown that it can go on the road and overcome adversity. They did it at Georgia Tech. They fell down double digits at Indiana and came back, and kind of similar to the way they did this game and finished it off with the run at the end. And I think it's big because now, as you're midway through the season under a first-year head coach, you've proven, not at one time maybe a fluke, you've proven multiple times that you know how to find a way to win when you're not, playing your best. And let's be honest, as good as this team has been in being resilient, they're not blowing folks out. They opened the season with a blowout win over Rice. They, beat a couple of mid-majors by double digits. The last time they really did something like that was against Tulsa back in December. Even the A&M game was a 10-point win, but it was a close game. It was a 2-point game in the last few minutes for Arkansas stretched that out. So to answer your question, I think the more you prove to yourself that you'll find a way to win, the more your confidence in yourself begins to make you a believer in what you're doing. So I think Arkansas is going to be through this tough SEC. There's 16 or 15 more games to go, and I think they're going to be like most of those games are going to look like what we've seen so far, Pat. Going to be a grind.
When you look at these games, how much can this team draw from last year? And I don't say that in regards to comparing Coach A to Coach Musk, but just the experiences. Because that when you really look inside last year's schedule, there was multiple games. You look at Texas Tech comes to mind here against Western Kentucky. Also at Kentucky, a lot of big time close games that they just couldn't find the plays. That this year that they're really starting to bear down, because last year this team would not have thought about getting it turned around on the defensive end. Talk about that growth.
Yeah, they do have experience from last year. That was the thing. It was one of the youngest teams in college basketball last year, but most of those guys came back, the ones that played or that were going to play, and I think that's helping that maturity. But I also think when you're sound on defense, even though they've got some shortcomings, obviously defensive rebounding, they're the worst in the conference, and we saw what LSU did there to them. But they're the best perimeter defense. They got the number one 3-point field goal defense in the country still. Have been at number one really most of the year. and they just find ways to create turnovers and win that turnover margin and points off turnovers, so they sort of compensate for the problems they have rebounding and second chance points. Yeah, I think when you play defense at that level and guys know their assignments and their roles, then that travels, and that's why at home or away, a lot of these games are going to look the same. They're going to look similar because Arkansas doesn't have depth. They don't have a lot of size or advantage inside, but they do create their own mismatches because it's harder for teams with also to defend Arkansas and sometimes defensively to see some of the things Arkansas is doing when they think they're going to have an advantage. Sometimes Arkansas takes away. So I do think that's huge. I think the defense is the identity of this team. I know that some guys will step up and have a big game like Isaiah Joe, but if you look at that game, even when he started making shots, he also was making defensive plays, as was Desi Sills, Adriel Bailey, Jimmy Witt. That's what turned that game.
When you look at this team, also a thing that jumps out to me, Kevin, when I'm at Bud Walton or watching this team on the SEC Network or ESPN, is that a lot of teams throw bodies and rotations are playing anywhere from 9 to 10 or 11 guys versus Arkansas. And it just seems like as the game wears on, it just seems like it's in reverse. The more bodies they're playing, those teams are getting fatigued. That's where it seems like that last 8 minutes, Arkansas seems to still be in a nice little energy rush, and they don't seem to get tired. They just seem to get stronger down the stretch. Talk about, how important that is going down the stretch when this team just continues to get that confidence and that rotation going even better than it already is.
Right. So you get a lot of fouls called in basketball now. That stops the clock. You got your TV timeouts. But I think conditioning is, everybody keeps asking about the conditioning. Sometimes when you use a lot of guys, it seems like you're saving legs. But the truth is, when it boils down to it, when it gets to a grind and when it gets down to the back stretch, you're still counting on the same 3 or 4 guys to carry you, no matter what your depth is. And I think teams that don't play their guys, their main players, extended minutes, sometimes those guys are being asked to. Obviously, if the game is close, you're having to exert a lot more energy. Every possession's precious. You can't really relax. You're not standing around trying to milk some clock with a big lead. You're in a fight for your life. And I just think Arkansas's kids are prepared for that, and they play heavy minutes, and they've adjusted to that. And I think some of these teams that have a little more depth, some of their top guys by the end of the game are trying to exert, and they're not used to having to do that long, that much at that time. I could be wrong about that, but that's kind of I think maybe part of it.
Right. Now, and Arkansas is going to, obviously have a big game on tomorrow night versus Vanderbilt, but the big one on ESPN, 3 o'clock in Bud Walton Arena on Nolan Richardson Court, the Kentucky Wildcats will be coming in, and, we all know that when Kentucky comes in, especially on the weekend, so will prospective recruits to check that game out. Talk about some of the big names that Coach Musk, Coach Crutchfield, Mosier, and Williams have really got interested that are going to be making their way down to Bud Walton for that contest.
Right. So you've got 3 committed players. Well, actually 1 signed player and 2 commitments. You've got Devontae Davis, who signed the 2020 class, the big 6'4" point guard out of Jacksonville. ESPN rates him number 81 in the country in that 2020 class. He's expected to be there. Jalen Williams, a big 6'10" forward center out of Fort Smith Northside, who's committed to Arkansas, ranked number 69 in the country, a 4-star from that 2020 class. And then the first high school commitment that Musselman ever had at Arkansas, 2021, Duncan Powell, the 6'7" combo forward out of DeSoto, Texas. He told me today that he's going to actually be there as well. He'd been working on that for a couple of weeks, and that's going to happen. So there's your 3 committed guys. Now there's 4 more players. Jackson Robinson, he's a top 35, 6'5", 6'6" wing. Out of Ada, Oklahoma, played on that national championship Team Griffin team from the Nike Peach team over the summer. He's rated top 35 in the country and a 4-star, big-time shooter. I saw him hang 9 threes and 33 points on the Woods Elite back in April in Fayetteville. He's making his 4th unofficial visit to Arkansas since August for this game. He was on campus 2 weeks ago for the A&M game, the SEC opener. So he'll be there. That's big. I mean, keep an eye on that, man. This might be a commitment alert. Is you coming back, man? Maybe he's ready to pull the trigger, maybe not. But he's supposed to be there. And then you've got some younger guys. You've got Javion Franklin, class of 2022, who got an Arkansas offer over the summer out of Little Rock Mills. Now he was at Sylvan Hills last year. He's just a sophomore, 6'4" wing. He's going to be there. You've got Talon Peter, who I really like out of the 2020 class. He's a senior, doesn't have any D1 offers, but a big athlete. has become a better and better basketball player. I got to see him at the AEL Combine a few months ago in Fayetteville, but he's going to be there on a visit. And I'm leaving somebody out. I've gone blank.
There's so many coming in.
No, Taryn Williams. I do not want to forget him. Arkansas has shown interest in him. The 6'5" wing out of Mariana Lee that's with the Arkansas Hogs program. Arkansas has been looking at him for a while. He took an unofficial visit in August, and he will be there as well. So 2021, Taryn Williams.
Well,
Whew, almost dropped the ball there, Pat.
Well, my man, love all your information. I know you and between you and Otis there at Hallville. I mean, where else do people need to go to get the skinny on all recruiting as far as Razorback football and basketball is concerned? But as always, hey, continue your great work, and thanks for taking time out here on OTHK.
Man, always good to be with you, Pat. Thank you.
All right, bud. That was Kevin McPherson of AR Hoops, and we're going to step away, take a real quick break, let you hear the final excerpts of Coach Muss, and then we're going to come back and close this thing out with Demetrius and myself. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479.
Our team, for
Back in a bit.
We're the exact opposite. So certainly feel like, not just Isaiah, but any of our guys, we feel like those corner threes, we should be able to hit it, at a higher percentage, and will, just based on, playing more games, and it kind of all evens out at the end of the day. But yeah, we've been a little bit shocked with how well we've shot it from above the foul line, extended and out, and surprised how we haven't hit it at a high clip in the corners.
What's your background with Stackhouse? Have you had a lot of crossing over with him?
Yeah, his brother Tony Dawson, I coached actually in Rapid City. Tony is, in my opinion, was probably the best scorer in the last 25 years that I've seen in minor league basketball that did not play in the NBA. Tony played at Florida State. Just through Tony, obviously Stack when he played was known as an incredible competitor. Obviously, his scoring speaks for itself. But anybody in the inner circles of the NBA knows what a competitor he was and how hard he played.
Here on the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk on KDSJ 479. As we're here to you Monday through Friday. Really good show. We just spoke with Ogville.net's Kevin McPherson and got the skinny on, just where he saw Arkansas take even more big steps forward as he was at the Ole Miss Arkansas game down in Oxford in the Pavilion. Also, too, want to give a shout out as we're going to close this out with our sponsors, Lindsay and Associates, with that being an office in Fayetteville, an office also too in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and KDK's Chicken. For my guest, Kevin McPherson, I want to say thank you for coming on and talking to us about all the recruiting that's going on, basketball. For my producer, Demetrius Johnson, and for myself, to you listeners, also great questions. Keep those questions coming. Keep them coming. We love those questions. We'll be back tomorrow with even much more, and then even more of a breakdown as Arkansas will host the Vanderbilt Commodores tomorrow night at Bud Walton Arena, Nolan Richardson Court, tip-off, 7:30 p.m. on the SEC Network. We'll have all that skinny for you in tomorrow's show. But for now, you guys, hey, take care. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. You guys have a blessed one, and let's get it.